The Building Better Relationships Journal and Meditation. We created the Building Better Relationships Journal and Meditation so you can magnetize the better relationships you want and focus on the positive role that you have in creating a better life through your relationships. We are excited for you to discover the gold within you that can help you manifest the love we all crave. The Building Better Relationships Journal has coaching questions that help you listen to the truth of what you want and what helps you to be empowered in love. The Building Better Relationships meditation is designed to strengthen your heart's ability to be that change you wish to see in the world. Why not download it now and think of it as a gift to those you love? If you love journaling and meditation, this is for you. Welcome to Building Better Relationships at Home and at Work with Angela and Patty podcast. This is Patty, a leadership and work-life balance coach from Arizona, USA.
And this is Angela, love and relationship coach from Sydney, Australia. And we are building better relationships with you.
Sharing new perspectives on being heart-centered at home and at work.
So you can draw on your inner power to make your relationships and the world a better place to be around.
In today's podcast episode, we have a special guest, Pollvogt, and she will be discussing how creativity builds better relationships. Cami did a previous guest podcast, episode 57, called Wish You Knew Why the People in Your Life Do What They Do.
Cami Pollvogt is a transformational life coach, an intentional creativity coach, and the founder of Change by Design, a creative personal development company that focuses on teaching, guiding, and accelerating personal change through the practice of living intentionally. She is a certified intentional creativity coach. Intentional creativity is an approach to creating with mindfulness that she utilizes with her clients to catalyze consciousness towards self-agency. Cami is here to share about intentional creativity, her program, Best at Being Me, and how it fits into helping you, our listening audience, to build better relationships at home and work.
Welcome, Cami. We're so excited that you're here.
Thank you. I'm excited as well.
Please tell us and the listeners about you, your journey, and why you became so passionate about intentional creativity.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I've been practicing my life coaching since 2017. But in the last 3 years, I brought intentional creativity into a workshop that I co-host with an authenticity coach, Davina Lyons. Plus, I regularly practice intentional creativity for myself. It's a personal practice now. I'll be launching a new workshop that Angela mentioned that integrates intentional creativity later this summer called Best at Being Me, which we'll talk about. But as far as my journey with infusing creativity into my coaching practice, it was present from the very start of my formation of my business. I had left corporate America and was really excited to start a new endeavor, and creativity had to be in whatever I was going to do next. I was really tired of the whole IT rigid, corporate rules and stuff. But one thing that when I tried to integrate it into my coaching practice with my initial clients, I noticed it wasn't working quite like I had anticipated it would. And I think about, that would be 2 years. 2 years into my coaching practice, I got an email ad for this thing called Intentional Creativity. And I read their landing page. I was so excited. Somebody had already devised a way to coach people with this thing called intentional creativity. And I was like, yes, I'm in. So I did a 6-month program with a person named by the name of Shiloh Sophia McLeod. And she has a big program on intentional creativity and teaching you how to utilize intentional creativity with your coaching practice. And it was exciting, and I got certified through her. But what I did realize when I had tried to do it on my own was what I had tried was too prescriptive. I was like, draw like this, create a box, do this, do that, right? And they weren't getting the flow state. If you're familiar with flow state, they weren't getting that kind of an experience that I wanted them to have. And so through the intentional creativity program, I was able to learn how to do it. But one of the two things that also tripped them up, my new clients, was there's a couple of things, and this still happens even when I introduce intentional creativity, is clients will say they're not creative or that they can't draw. And when they say they're not creative, I immediately are like, okay, let's just dispel that notion. Everyone's creative and everyone creates pretty much every day. So if the easiest one is thinking about making your meal. Like even when you make a sandwich, you're creating a sandwich, right? You decide what you want to put on that sandwich and you're creating it. That's a form of creativity and creating. Writing a memo for work, putting together a presentation, and hosting a podcast. That's very creative, right? You have to figure out who do you want to come as guest people, and then what are the topics you want to talk about. So there's a lot of creativity that's going on in all things that we do. And I do believe that when people say that, well, I'm not creative, they actually mean I don't have artistic talent. And a lot of times I reference Jackson Pollock's splatter paintings. So not to be too judgmental, but it doesn't take a whole lot to splatter on a canvas, right? So his paintings have been sold for up to $140 million. So, I mean, there's something to be said with, about the eye of the beholder, right? And that creations are actually 100% a gift from themselves to themselves. And there's no pressure to share the creations that they come up with in our sessions or the workshop with anybody other than whoever's present, myself, or if in the workshops, the other attendees of the workshop. And I don't even make them share in the workshops if they don't feel like it. And then the other point that I was talking about is they think they can't draw. So this starts to surface the inner critic, right? So it surfaces thinking and behavior patterns that I feel like we can start to explore in a coaching session as well. I don't typically explore it in the workshop. I'll say to them, if you're really getting stuck, let's have a separate one-on-one coaching session so that we can discuss what's going on with the inner critic, because it's either perfectionism, feeling like they need to perform as in comparative to the other students in the workshop, right? Performance anxiety. Oh, you're going to make me draw, right? And then you're going to evaluate what I've drawn, right? Nobody evaluates. It's all your interpretation. It's expressionism. Whatever's on your paper is for you to explain what it is. And if we can't see it, it doesn't matter. If we can't see it, the point is you can see that it looks like this, that, and the other thing, right? And then we also talk about the need to control the outcome of the art piece itself, because intentional creativity is not about the outcome of the creative piece. It's that the drawing or the painting. Intentional creativity is 100% about what comes up and out through your thoughts and your feelings and what kind of actions are then ignited because of the process. Think of it like meditation, right? And so I often also tell a lot of when I introduce people to intentional creativity, is think like a child. And remember when we were a little kid and somebody gave us paints and crayons and we just went for it, right? We had no idea that it would be looked at as like, what is this? What did you draw? We get excited with our kids. We're like, what did you draw? What is that? And it's so exciting. Just channel that inner child and go for it, right? So pretty much that's the gist of how I got started. And a little taste of what intentional creativity is.
It sounds amazing. Can you explain a little bit more what exactly is intentional creativity?
Yes. Yeah. So even in the intro, you had said its simplest definition is creating with mindfulness, similar to meditation. So have you ever had the experience of having your best ideas seem to come to the surface when you're doing something like walking or cleaning or gardening? Mine come in the shower or driving. I remember getting off of work when I worked in corporate America, and I would be like, oh, I should have said that. Mm-hmm. The best things come when you're just doing something that's more rote and you just do these things automatically. So intentional creativity is a manifestation of that automaticity, which is the ability to create without occupying the mind to the low-level details required to create that particular art piece. So in the case of like driving or showering, we no longer need to think about, okay, washing hair means putting shampoo in my hand and sticking it on my hair. We just do it automatically, right? We don't have to think it through. Intentional creativity uses that, right? So what we do is we match up the act of creating with typical coaching inquiries, such as who am I? And then somebody goes and draws, and their brain starts downloading all these things that come to their mind about who am I, right? Or say the inquiry is what lights me up or what inspires me. And then all of a sudden, once they start thinking it and drawing, they lose themselves in the thought and less about what they're drawing. They're just doodling. They're just letting the pen flow on the page wherever it goes, right? So it does feel for me similar to meditation, and a lot of my peer students in the 6-month course that I took also said it felt like meditation. But the key to intentional creativity and its effectiveness is to definitely locate a safe place where you can achieve a relaxed state for your conscious mind to totally focus on whatever that inquiry is. Similar to meditation, it's very hard to meditate in a chaotic environment, right? So you get into a quiet space and where you still have the ability to create. And sometimes you can even put music on as well, just some ambient noise or some nice soft music that doesn't, distract you from the exercise itself. But intentional creativity utilizes drawing, painting, and coloring. But as I mentioned earlier, you can utilize any creative process. So if you're a chef and that's what really gets you in that rote activity of just, you can make a dish without thinking about the recipe. You just throw things in and that's your creative modality, or knitting, dancing, anything that could conjure up your answers to an inquiry is viable for intentional creativity. We just happen to use drawing and painting because what's nice about it is you immediately have a place to write what you're thinking and capture it. So if you do use a different modality of creativity and artistic expression, just make sure you have a pen and paper nearby so that you can capture what you're thinking, or you could even voice memo it into a cell phone or something. Mm-hmm. If that's helpful. The best thing about the intentional creativity that I bring to my clients is no artistic talents required, because it's not about the outcome of the art itself. It's about what's revealed inside of you, your truths, your desires, values, your past, your possibilities, choices, identity, healing of trauma sometimes, acceptance. And I mean, it's just infinite. I could just go on and on and on and list out all different ways that it reveals, similar to what manifests with meditation.
That's very interesting, Cami. How does intentional creativity build better relationships? How do you use that?
Yeah. So intentional creativity won't build better relationships, similar to meditation doesn't. You don't come out of a meditation session and be like, okay, it's healed, right? So it's an approach or a pathway. Every relationship has a common denominator, which is you, right? Mm-hmm. So I always feel, and this is what I also said in the color code interview with you all, is that it's our responsibility to show up in any of our relationships mentally healthy, regardless of who is on the other side of that relationship. It's our responsibility to examine and to explore and to look at how are we showing up at the best of our ability to have healthy relationships. So intentional creativity has a potential, if you're open to it and allow it, to reveal what's hidden in our subconscious, thereby making it conscious, and then increasing your self-agency or the awareness of I am the one who's at cause for generating an action, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just basically, like I keep saying this, so it'll probably be very repetitious after the end, but it's very much like meditation, right? It's a tool. It's a tool to get you
to look within yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, meditation was hard because of oftentimes meditation is a quieting of the mind, and intentional creativity is let the mind go. Right? Mm-hmm. Let the mind just pour out, and the drawing onto your drawing or your doodling or your writing. You can write. It doesn't have to be 100% drawing of things. It can just be, journaling like crazy. Here's the next thought and the next thought and the next thought. But like traditional coaching, inquiry is really essential to intentional creativity and therefore self-awareness process. So if you're just doodling one afternoon, just for the sake of doodling, if you don't have an inquiry in mind, you may start to ponder things or download things that are interesting to you, but they might not make a whole lot of sense because you're not answering an inquiry. An example I'd like to give is, if I were working with a wife and I said, what's not working with your relationship? Intentional creativity probably wouldn't be as effective with that particular question, right? The wife would probably just start listing all the things that's already the tape running in her head, mm-hmm. right? This is, I'm exhausted, and that's why she's showing up to coaching with me in the first place, mm-hmm. right? This is something that she's been running and running and running. So if I were to ask a more effective question, it would be, what part do you play in the health of your relationship? Now,
I like that.
Now she's going to really be like, oh, yeah, because I'm not going to be able to help any of my clients unless they help themselves, right? So I would immediately know if they responded with, I don't play a part in the health of my relationship. I would be like, okay, we need to work on that, right? Because everybody plays a part in the health of all their relationships because it includes us, right? I think that answers the question. Does that feel like you guys are getting a sense of intentional creativity and how it helps with relationships?
Oh, definitely.
And also how it works with coaching and having an intentional question. I particularly liked, Cami, how you were saying it's about personal responsibility about your part in the relationship.
Yes.
And it's not about being perfect. It's about your responsibility. Because I think one of the problems is people think you're supposed to be a certain way in a relationship or your partner should be perfect. But this is actually what is your part, and awareness, self-awareness about your part in the relationship. So that was a great answer. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the keystones to, if you go to therapy, coaching, any type of help for relationships. It's funny. I think there's a lot of people out there that have the misunderstanding that they're going to go fix the other partner, right? I'm going to fix them, and the therapist is going to tell you to stop doing this, that, and the other thing, right? And that's the wrong, I shouldn't say wrong, but it's not a good mindset to go into getting out of this stuck space, right? You have to take ownership of your part, and your partner needs to take ownership of their part. And it's the therapist and the coach's job to get each person to understand their parts and to stay in their lane, stay in their page, stay on their path, right? And don't cross over and, accusing and, criticizing and all the fun stuff that we all deal with relationships, right?
Right.
I can build
Expecting more out of somebody than they can give.
Yeah.
And trying to make them into something that they're not, right? I mean, I can tell you I've been there a lot of times in my relationships, looking at my husband going, why do you think like that? I really want to change his thinking ways, right? And he's like, I just don't think that way. And it becomes a little bit of an issue sometimes. And I have to come back and say, I apologize for trying to make you think the way I think. Yeah.
Cami, tell us about change by design.
I love change by design. Change by design is basically my love and my passion is intentionality. And we all go through changes, big and small. And the bigger ones tend to need more intention to it. So change by design is the name of my coaching business. So I believe that too many people operate on autopilot and settling for status quo or good enough while daydreaming or wishing that things in their life were different, that they want change, right? So I desire to help people take the necessary intentional steps towards creating dreams or a version of those dreams, because I'm completely realistic. If some people come to me and say, I want to achieve the dream of being like a rock star, but they can't sing at all, I'm going to say, okay, there's a little bit of reality here. You can maybe, get singing lessons and gradually maybe get there. But, there is some natural limitations that some of us have. I always dreamed of being a rock star and I can't sing a lick. But many people are walking this earth not fulfilled by their career, their relationship, their health, their finances, you name it, whatever the thing is. Some aspect of their life just isn't working. But my belief is that it's never too late to design your life with purpose and intention. And that's my mission. In fact, I just recently saw a news headline that said a 94-year-old man is now the oldest person to graduate from Kaiser University. His name is Bob Blum, and he received his Bachelor of Science degree in interdisciplinary studies. And it was so cute. The article says that he said, I was coming to the decision, do I really want to do this? And I would think, yeah, I do. Right. And that's the first step in intentionality. Yes, I just got to say yes to doing this thing that I want. Right. Right. Mm-hmm. Even in its smallest step. So what's his smallest step? Registering. Next step, getting the books. Next step, going to the first class. Right. It's these little steps that he pursued to eventually get his degree at 95 years old. Now, could he have, us younger people may have additional purposes beyond, just getting the degree. The article didn't share what his, bigger purpose was. It may just be the simplicity of the achievement of completing a degree was his intention. So he worked hard and he did it, right? So for my clients, my hope is that they have a so what to their degree. So if they went and got a degree, a friend of mine actually got a degree as an attorney, and the minute she came out of the exam to get passing the bar exam, about 3 months later, she was like, I hate being an attorney. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was just like and she was daydreaming of leading a different life. But mm-hmm. she stayed the course because she was already too far in it. Mm-hmm. Right. So I want to work with people who are like her, like, let's change course before you're miserable. Right. Let's
30 years in a job that you hate.
Yeah. Let's get to the bliss.
Yes.
Yeah.
and be happy. And
Yeah.
can people with no creativity join your workshops, and how does that work?
So absolutely. I mentioned it earlier. Everyone is welcome. I tend to invite women more than men. Being a woman, it's easier to relate to women, but I have coached men before, and men stereotypically do not have an affinity for creativity in the manner in which it's presented in intentional creativity. But there are a handful that my instructor Shiloh Sophia McLeod has interfaced with. So they are out there, but it's, I would say, a good 90% appealing to women more than men. But as I mentioned before, everyone's creative. As for having an artistic talent or not, that doesn't matter. It's literally like finger painting, scribbling. You don't even have to make anything that looks like something, right? It's just after you start doing intentional creativity a lot, you'll find your pieces will start to have some beauty to them because you tend to get the hang of it. And then you'll start seeing that the beauty comes. If I were to show you my first journal book, you would be like, oh yeah, I see the difference between page 1 and page 5. It grows. Yeah.
Well, I've been taking some every once in a while. My mom is very talented, artistic wise, and she started teaching paint and sip. Yeah. And both my parents are very artistic. My dad's deceased, but he was very artistic. And he would say to me, I can't believe you came from 2 artistic people and you can't even draw a straight line. And I'd be like, oh, wow. Well, anyways, so I started going to her paint and sip once a month. And you can see the difference from when I started till now. I've actually gotten better and better, and I'm using more of my creativity rather than trying to follow a set pattern.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the joy of it, I think. Do you feel like you're getting the joy from just letting go?
Yeah. It's actually fun. At first, I didn't know if it would be fun because, the inner critic came in. But as time got on, I got really relaxed and just kind of did my own thing. And some of them turned out pretty good.
Yeah. And it really helps when people don't judge. I do that a lot. I'm like, here's my thing. And if they start judging, I'm like, it's not for you to judge. I just I wanted you to see what I did. That's it. That's all. You don't need to evaluate it. Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like it's a really good practice for getting over yourself and getting over the inner critic.
Yes. Yeah. Definitely. The purpose is definitely not to display, hang on the wall. If you want to, that's fine. Right. But it's not to share in an art gallery. This isn't a class on creating art. Right. I don't even tell you how to do it. I'll demonstrate what I do, but I don't tell you, here's how you draw an eyeball or here's how I draw a box. Right. I don't go into drawing 101. So the purpose is to evolve your deeper self-awareness. It's all about self-awareness. It's a catalyst for curating our consciousness. And when you're creating, doodling, the subconscious is connected. It's where the things that we've never thought of before all of a sudden surface, and you're like, oh my gosh, you feel like you're channeling someone, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm not even that smart to come up with that idea. Right? You're like, I just came up with something brilliant. And you're just like, wow, that's awesome, right? But it is there. I mean, think about how much stuff we get into our brain 24/7. We are absorbing that stuff. And so when you're doodling, some of those ideas and concepts come to the surface, allowing your conscious to process it and to start doing something with it. It's like intuition. And sometimes your hand will start to draw an object. You see a lot of when I when I look at the artwork of a lot of the students from intentional creativity programs, it's a lot of hearts, a lot of light and hearts. And we have a thing called red thread. So there's a lot of red threads in the drawing. I can talk about red thread if you're interested, but it's a lot of similar themes, because that's just humanity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Human beings have a lot to say about the heart, and the body. There's a lot of body parts. A lot of nudes actually come out. Yeah. But sometimes you can't even tell if it's a nude. You have to kind of, turn the painting and be, oh yeah, now I see it. But yeah, and it's like Picasso, right? Picasso was really this abstract, faces that were different, right? So intentional creativity looks a lot like Picasso paintings. So you just do swirls, lines, dots. And some exercises can be more prescriptive, like create a container and then fill that container with these thoughts. A popular one that you probably did outside of intentional creativity is the concept of fill your cup. Are you filling your cup? And what are you filling your cup with, as in self-care, right? So you ask somebody to draw a cup, and then you start asking them to think about, what will you fill your cup with? And then they start filling their cup with words or drawings or, whatever they want. So that's a real prescriptive one rather than free form on a blank page. But again, it works just like meditation. No two people are seeing the same thing. So when you go through guided meditations and they say, go, picture clouds. Well, my clouds are not the same as your clouds. Mm-hmm. Or picture a river. They're not going to be the same, right? So imagine just taking what was in your imagination and putting it on a piece of paper instead. So now instead of your eyes closed and in your head, it's down on your paper now. And then it gets really good. It's very personal. It's very intimate and can be a vulnerable process sometimes. There are times where I start to get a little weepy. I mean, like, oh, it brought up stuff that I trying to push down, mm-hmm. right?
Earlier, Kemi, you mentioned the subconscious gets tapped into with intentional creativity. And you said also before that intentional creativity, to help build better relationships, you actually have to have an intentional question. So I'm wondering if you could share an experience or a story where creativity solved a problem for someone in their relationships with one of the clients.
The creativity doesn't really solve the problem, right? It's like we were talking earlier. It's just an approach and a pathway toward revealing one's own answer to then solve their problem. So I don't look at creativity as the problem solver. I look at it as a tool like meditation. And basically we improve our lives by all kinds of things. Reading a book, watching a TED Talk, another individual says something that sparks something, and we're like, oh my gosh, I wish I would have known this, 30 years ago. I've been hung up on this concept that I need to be like this, that, or the other thing. And this one person said one phrase, and I'm now, cured. But it takes our actions. So we're solving our own problem. It's just the message is being received from ourselves through the inquiry. So instead of it being a book, a TED Talk, or another person, it's ourselves who has the answer. And mostly the best answer for you, because it's customized by you. And at the time, it's kind of right time, right place. Sometimes we read a book and the answer that the author's giving you is too much for us. It's just overwhelming. And we're like, I don't know if I can do that. When you go to intentional creativity with it, your problem gets solved at the level that is intimate to you and designed by you, right? That's the brilliantness with coaching, is coaches can ask a client, consider this, but if the client's not ready for that, they're going to say, I'm not ready for that. right?
Right.
Intentional creativity is more catalyzing our own answers to saying, I accept that I'm going to need to do this, this, and that, right? Because it's coming from them. Does that make sense? Is that confusing?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
So I love Wayne Dyer. He has a wonderful quote that says, change the way you see things, and the things you see will change. So this is happening to me a lot lately through intentional creativity. I have surfaced so many more like, oh, Tammy, what have you been doing? All these patterns of behavior that I have been stuck in and not realizing I was stuck in them. Really, totally not realizing I was stuck in some pretty not healthy patterns. And then once I changed the way I saw things, it's like heaviness lifting off my body. I'm just like, oh, wow. There's a new way of seeing these. And all of a sudden, everything around you starts to feel different as well. Who knows if it's changed? It's probably an action of perception, right? When we change our perception, the other things seem to change as well. So we're not really solving a problem, but I do get what you're asking. So I'm going to give you hopefully an example. I'm going to give you my personal example. During the COVID quarantine, I was having a little bit of happiness issues, right? I was like, I just don't feel happy. I didn't feel like I could do a lot. My joy was leaving me and I didn't know why. And I'm sure a lot of it had to do with quarantine. I do like to be out and about and socializing. Even though I'm an introvert and get drained by people, I do need that kind of yin yang kind of an interaction with people. I couldn't put my finger on why I was so unhappy. So I went through some intentional creativity, metacognitive drawing. So if you don't know what metacognitive drawing is, it's basically metacognitive is thinking about thinking, and then drawing is actually drawing, right? So I did notice that I had inner dialogue wishing that my husband would do this, that, and the other thing, right? So typical wife going, if only he would do these things, I would be a little bit more happy. And I had the stereotypical case of feeling sorry for myself. So the inquiry that I used was, how am I contributing to my happiness? And so I started to draw, right? Embarrassingly, the evidence was clear that I wasn't doing much to create my own happiness. I went through the process and I revealed that I wanted my husband to basically be a mind reader, right? I was like, I wasn't saying I want you to do this, that, and the other thing, right? And so I wanted him to like pick up on the fact that I was down and to come be like, hey, babe, how is it? What's going on? But I was hiding it because part of me didn't want him to know I was feeling down. But then I wanted him to recognize it. I mean, how crazy making is that? I wanted him to lift my spirits, but I hid that I was down. That's crazy. As I say it out loud, it's like, oh my gosh, I wanted him to do something, but I also hid it. Not only that, but I wanted him to care for me in a way that's counter to his natural ways of supporting me. I was wishing for a whole lot of him and doing absolutely nothing for myself. And the realization through my process is that no one was responsible for my happiness except for me, right? I'm responsible. And making other people responsible for my happiness is just ridiculous. It's not going to work. Even if they tried, it wouldn't work. I would be resistant. It's me who needs to find the joy for myself. And I also realized that I was sabotaging some of his desire to be loving towards me because I was being a little bit critical, even though it was a kind critical. The bottom line is when you're critical, it's critical, right? And delivering it kindly or not, criticism is like kryptonite for your healthy relationship. You cannot deliver criticism in a nice way. You have to have conversation. And so it's the conversation of, I feel like this when this happens, and I'm trying to work out how to think of it differently. Do you have some ideas? That doesn't sound like a criticism. That sounds like partner with me to come up with something else that I can do. I'm not laying it on you. Or I call up a girlfriend and say, man, I'm feeling really critical and I need to vent. Venting is girls' happy place sometimes. But another thing, I use intentional creativity as a co-host of the Authentic Me workshop that I mentioned earlier with Davina Lyons. So I bring intentional creativity to those workshops, but I can tell you that when I introduced it, some of them were really not having it. They felt, like, I don't get it, right? A lot of that, I don't get it. I don't know how. And the inner critic stuff come up. And then others took to it like fish in water, right? They were like, yes, I love to draw. I love to do this, right? And they were just going for it. I've not gathered direct feedback from any of them, but I do witness that they are connecting to the inner dialogue. When we go round robin and say, what came up for you, they will talk about what are they thinking and sensing and trying to make sense of what's going on for them in their life and really noticing how they're thinking. And that's really great. If you are thinking about your thinking, metacognition, you get a lot further in your mental health because you're going to start recognizing, I'm really, really critical. I say sorry all the time, or my self-dialogue will be, I have a client that she apologizes every time there's a breath, I'm sorry, I shouldn't. And I'm like, sweetheart, why are you so sorry? Let's talk about that. A habit. It's an inner dialogue habit of hers. A lot of downgrading who she is in that process. So we would talk about it. I did not do intentional creativity with her, but it definitely was something that came out a lot in our conversations. But intentional creativity used in that workshop, I used that metacognitive drawing in part, and then part of it's graphic recording. Are you guys familiar with graphic recording?
No.
So graphic recording is actually it's kind of on the rise. Creativity on the whole is on the rise, but graphic recording is those people who, you might have seen YouTubes on it, where somebody draws while somebody is giving a message or standing up in front of an audience, delivering a keynote or even the entire conference. Somebody's drawing the concept of the whole thing from A to Z. They're depicting it visually, the whole conference visually onto a big poster board. So graphic recording is simply listening to someone and making sense of it, kind of like mind mapping in a way, if you've heard of that. Yeah. So what we did in the Authentic Me is a combination of that, of like, as we were talking about topics, they were able to graphic record and create visual depictions of how they were feeling about what was being said and how it relates to them. Like if somebody feeling like, that topic is a big thorn in my side, they may draw a thorn. So it's both literal and figurative dumping of information in a creative visual way on a paper. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, Cami, it was interesting before how you mentioned the pandemic. So I've got a few questions around that. What makes creativity get bogged down in our lives? Why do we stop being creative?
Yeah. So there are various reasons why some people stop their creative artistic outlets, right? So I'm going to keep to the artistic thing because, again, I believe that we all are creative all day, every day. But from the artistic standpoint, I think what happens is we get associated judgments of our artistic talent either by ourselves or others. So if you're a little kid and somebody is saying, feeding you back, you're great at drawing or you're not great at drawing, soon you stop drawing because you're not getting uplifted and being told you're good at it, right? So you're just going to stop. So it's associated judgments, right? The second one is tendency to focus on areas of natural talent. So just inherently, this is how all human beings are. You gravitate towards your natural talent. So if your natural talent is sports, You're going to stop doing painting and go kick the ball outside and toss the ball outside, right? Because your talents are in that area. From a systemic in the world, we are systemically have these overrides that are going on. Thou shall do this based upon cultural mandates and societal mandates and stuff. But we can look at the Industrial Revolution now. Now there is 4 stages to the Industrial Revolution, but just on the whole, if you just think about industry and that coming, somebody created a new way to be industrious, and manufacturing came aboard, and then it was plug the human being into the job. So the person who created the thing and the human being just followed the instructions. There's no more creation. It's do the task, complete it, and then repeat it again. We had a workforce that used to be figure out what you want to do, sell, and give to the community, trade, barter, create. We were all creating. And then Industrial Revolution came along and somebody designed do A, B, C, D, E, and repeat. And then that's the creativeness, because they just go into their 9-to-5 job and do the repetitious task. So where's their creativity going to go to? Home, their home life. And their home life is usually taking care of the stuff that needs to get taken care of that wasn't done when they were at work, putting food on the table and all that other stuff. So if you're artistically inclined, you will probably push to integrate that into your world. But it's just kind of the nature of it. And I think that I know Patty's background, Angela, I'm not sure if you had a corporate background, but both Patty and I, had artistic stuff to the side, and maybe sporadically we did art, but yeah, you go in, you do your job, and you come home and repeat, right?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because it is a huge situation, and I see it in my own friendship circles how that job stops a lot of their natural creativity, and then they get into mindsets like, oh, I'm too tired.
Yeah.
Oh, I have to do this. And that's a mindset that interferes with natural creativity. So after the pandemic, what do you think that we've learnt about creativity in our lives?
I think so. The thing that I wanted to talk about with the pandemic is I think it boosted a bunch of creativity just because it was necessary, right? Right.
Yeah.
So like an example I have is somebody may have had to make a makeshift gym out of their home because the gyms were closed. I need to figure out a way to make pulleys and levers, and do that weight training somehow in my home. So they got creative and created a gym out of makeshift stuff. They started gardens in their backyards, maybe started knitting something, inventing games. I mean, my son and I invented a game just because it's like, you got to do something to distract the brain from the day in, day out drudgery and not being able to do what you normally did. So I think creativity spiked post-pandemic. I don't know that it's going to change a whole lot. I just think it's the nature of people to wax and wane depending upon what's pushing, right? What's pushing them to go there. I have an opinion that I think we had an influx of people quitting their jobs during the pandemic, not only losing their jobs, but quitting their jobs because they're like, I can make a living doing X, Y, and Z from home. They've got a taste of working remotely. And so they're like, I really like this freedom to do what I want throughout the day because they got a taste of it all of a sudden. And so we had a lot of people quit because of that. So I think a surge of creativity as far as innovating themselves into entrepreneurship, it might not be new innovations like things that have never been created before. I mean, that's becoming tougher and tougher now that we are worldwide connected, new ideas are really getting harder and harder to manifest because we're so connected. So you can Google your thought and somebody's already done it. Somebody's already made that invention that you just spur of the moment thought of. That's kind of what's happening right now.
And I think one of the other things is people really had some time to self-reflect about their life.
Yeah. What
was before, what could be.
Yeah.
What they didn't like about their before life.
Yeah.
Is it time to change it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they had some time to really self-reflect and think about their life and what they truly wanted out of their life, because a lot of people weren't doing anything to light up their souls or light themselves up or their family or their relationships.
Yeah.
So I think that too brought some awareness.
Yeah, self-awareness. Yeah, I do think that a greater degree of self-awareness was had during the pandemic. If it would have been just a little blip, I don't think it would have.
Right.
2.5 years, pretty much. 2.5 years, you got to figure out what to do with the headspace. Yeah, because we used to fill it with what? Television, running errands, talking to people, going out to eat, all those different things. We fill the space.
Right.
We're good at that as human beings. Fill the space.
Right.
with doing instead of being. Yeah.
Not spending time with yourself and really getting to know yourself because you're too busy doing instead of spending time getting to know you and your family and your friends. And
well, and isn't that interesting? I don't know if you or the listeners have been addicted to this Showtime series called Couples Therapy. The recording of that show is during pandemic. And so you got to see the effect of couples relationships with relationship to the quarantine and COVID and being shut in. And, a lot of them, the therapist, you hear her talking to her coach, therapists have someone else that they review their clients with. And she was like, it's kind of getting a little old. Every conversation is the same. I can't do this. I'm on Zoom calls. I'm on this. I'm on that, so every one of her sessions with the couples was no longer about their relationship, but about how they were relating to being quarantined. Right. And so she was like, I kind of feel like I had to hold space for them to talk about their quarantine problems and not their relationship problems, because the quarantine was superseding any of the relationship stuff. So it's really interesting. So if you haven't looked at it, definitely some of the episodes are on YouTube, so you can check it out. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I'll have a look at that. Thanks for that, Cami.
Yeah.
So then at the bigger level for our culture, what is the importance of creativity for our culture? I'm fascinated by this notion, what you just said about Google. If you Google an idea, somebody's already done it. So what then is the role of creativity in our culture now, and how can we foster that in our communities and our culture? What's the importance of creativity?
My opinion here is that creativity is the lifeblood to human culture, right? It drives everything forward. Creativity is how we got to where we are with technology, how we got where we are with medical advances, all the things, right? All the experimentation, innovation, modernization, problem solving, language, all that stuff. Creativity is just innate in all of us. So that's why I always say everyone's creative. Is you just do, whether or not the idea is somebody else's across the world or across the globe. It's okay. you can now collaborate with that person and say, how did you go about doing this? And I might have the next iteration of said thing, or be able to amplify or come at it from a different lens that catalyzes a relationship between two creative beings.
Okay.
Now, when it comes to artistic expression, it's important because it's the gateway to understanding things that we may not currently know. So it's my assertion and my belief that creativity is the catalyst to the earliest findings of things. For example, it was around 500 BC that Pythagoras first proposed that the earth was spherical, mainly based upon aesthetic grounds, right? Some aesthetic feeling in his imagination that it's spherical, right? He had no evidence. He just imagined it, right? So that's what intentional creativity is he simply was, I feel like that this is what it is, and he had to figure out how to prove it. And so he believed it was a sphere, and then other people picked up on that. And then eventually it was proven that we do live on a spherical globe. But also I want you to think about earliest civilizations. They created petroglyphs, hieroglyphs, and the effect of which embodies so much value: communication, visual representation, meaning making, research, history. I mean, when you talk to somebody who has uncovered those petroglyphs and hieroglyphs, the amount of information that they're able to extract on a culture is amazing, right? And it informs so much of the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. And their pictures, that's what intentional creativity is pictures, drawings. You know, the bison takes the produce from the field and delivers it to the people, right? They'll put that depiction and they'll depict their gods. So you learn their religion, their spiritual meanings, and their words. That's not going away just because we have a technical era, right? Just because we can now reach across the globe through a computer system, through the World Wide Web. It doesn't go away. It just means that we are now connected, and we have to kind of connect and mushroom out new possibilities, new ways of doing the next iteration of XYZ. So creativity doesn't go away. It's probably just more amplified. And yeah. So this is how I think about creativity. It's not only in paintings, drawings, but a path towards putting our thoughts and ideas and understanding, which is currently unknown. So like I was saying, our subconscious picks up on so much stuff. That's the unknowable place. Your subconscious is not connected to our functioning present brain. Our subconscious collects the information and holds a lot. I can't even remember what the percentage is. I want to say it's 93.
Wow.
It was like 7%. We operate off of 7% consciousness, and I want to say 93% subconscious. So it's the thing that the subconscious drives us to and from work, right? Because once we learn the mechanics of driving, we don't need to think about it anymore. And in fact, we get to our destination going, crap, I don't remember which roads I took, right? Yeah. That's the subconscious at work. We don't imagine if we had running in our conscious thoughts all the stuff our subconscious knows, we'd kind of be crazy. I think we'd be crazy.
That's my problem.
Yeah. It's like subconscious saves us from all the crazy stuff, right? And even think about fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. You know, those things are also in play with our subconscious and conscious. It's like tug, pull kind of a thing. But I think it's safe to say that artistic outlets will be critical for mental health. It already is starting to be very critical. It's probably been, I want to say, I don't know when art therapy came about, but I want to say before I was born, it was starting. I'm 53, 50 some odd years. It's been being practiced. And I think that we have to do a lot of undoing of some toxic innovations, right? We do have things that are, for a time, were great innovations, but now they're producing toxic things into our air and doing into our water and our land. So I think that we're starting to become more, health and wellness conscious, and we have to come up with new innovations to combat all that other stuff. But yeah.
Cami, how can our listeners find you or contact you about your products, services, and workshops?
Yeah, so everything about me can be accessed through my website at www.changebydesign.life. I couldn't get the .com. I wanted the .com, but life is good, right?
Yes. Yes.
Life is great. Thank you so much, Cami, for joining us. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the listeners?
Yeah, so at the top of the time, I talked about my workshop, Best at Being Me. I'd like to share about that. So it's upcoming this summer. This workshop is for the every woman. So if you're familiar with Jungian archetypes, the every person, right? So I'm saying every woman who feels like they're in the midst of a life transition. So young or old, college bound or exiting college, starting a career or leaving one, a new mama or an empty nester, getting married or recently divorced. Whatever the transition is, if you're seeking to make the most of your next life and the evolution on your terms, have an affinity or open-mindedness to blending artistic expression with meditation, and you're ready to do the work to delve deeply into your identity beyond various roles you hold. And what I mean by various roles you hold, we all know a lot of us women are mamas. We're at a minimum a daughter, right? Daughter, sometimes a sister, an aunt. And then at our workplace, we hold different roles there. And then our churches, we have another role. We have many, many roles. And I'm saying, let's take a look at those roles and put them to the side, and let's learn about who you are. And so I invite you to consider checking out the Best at Being Me workshop, where you begin to explore the multifaceted you through intentional creativity exercises to become the hero of your life story, because no one is better at knowing you than you. So join the workshop to see what you're made of. The dates are being firmed up, so check back around July 1st, and the date should be up there.
And we'll have Cami's website in our show notes. Thank you so much for listening. Please share the podcast with others and give us a 5-star review so more people can find us and listen to the podcast.
Thank you for listening to Building Better Relationships with Angela and Patty. Send us a message and please like or share the podcast or donate with the Anchor donate button. We really value your feedback.